What does success look like for not just Tennessee football in general this season, but for Joey Halzle, for Tim Banks, and specifically Josh Heupel? What does success look like for the Volunteers this year? All that and more, it's your Wednesday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into it, your Wednesday morning Locked On Vols. I am your host, Cain, a member of the VolQuest.com team here in town, and of course, your host here at Locked On Vols, where we are free and available wherever you get your podcast weekday mornings when you wake up. Every day, couldn't do the show without you. Over 17,000 YouTube subscribers, all because of you guys. Can't thank you enough for that. Let's continue to climb. And you're a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every single day. Today's episode is brought to you in part by our friends over at Monarch Money, where you can take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use promo code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. A lot to get into here today. Ward Wednesday coming up in segment number 2. Scouting the Opponent Series in segment number 3. We'll take a look at Tennessee's first SEC road battle of the year. That's in Stark Vegas. I hate when people say that. That's in Starkville at Mississippi State. We'll talk about that in segment number 3. But first, what does success look like for the University of Tennessee in 2025? Specifically for these coaches, what does success look like? And I'm not just talking about record prediction and, is Tennessee going to be 9-3? Can Tennessee push for 10 wins? Is 8-4 acceptable? Floor 7-5? None of that. I'm not saying the floor 7-5. I still think Tennessee is much better than that. We're not talking record predictions or anything like that here on today's show. We're kind of diving down into the specifics, right? What is successful for Joey Halzle? What is successful for Tim Banks? Let's start on offense, right? And I think we can all agree that the offense has lacked a little bit of that luster, a little bit of that explosiveness, specifically over the last 2 years. Could that be the lack of Alex Golesh as the OC? Could that be the lack of Hendon Hooker? Could that be the lack of a Biletnikoff Award winner and a guy that's playing in the NFL right now, and Jalen Hyatt at wide receiver, Cedric Tillman at wide receiver, Velus Jones was a dynamic player at the wide receiver position as well. I think all those things kind of go into it for sure. But more than anything, I think Tennessee needs to get back to the explosive. So one of my key points for the offense this year, and I understand there's questions still. We're 2.5 weeks into camp. There's still questions about who's the quarterback going to be. There's still questions about who the wide receivers are going to be if healthy and all that. I get all that. But the explosive plays have just not been where they need to be the last couple of years. Again, I'll remind you, in 2021 and in 2022, Tennessee's offenses ran 153 plays of 20 yards or more. They ran 92 plays of 30 yards or more. That was the first 2 years in this offense. The last 2 years, okay, Tennessee has run Tennessee ran 111 plays of 20 yards or more and 52 plays of 30 yards or more. So a significant drop-off in terms of the explosives and kind of what this has looked like in the offense the last couple of years. You're going from the first 2 years of running 153 plays of 20 yards or more down to 111. You're going from running 92 plays of 30 yards or more down to just 52. That's not good, right? You look at the down-the-field passing. First 2 years with Hendon Hooker, Tennessee combined for 50 completions, 23 touchdowns, 2 interceptions on plays 20 yards or more down the field. Joe Milton and Nico Iamaleava combined for 34 completions, 18 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions the last 2 years on plays 20 yards or more down the field in the deep ball passing. Also, tempo. Got to get the tempo back to where it needs to be. Look at the plays ran in this offense in 4 years, right? In 2022, Tennessee ran 945 plays against Power 4 opponents, or Power 5 opponents at the time, averaging 41 points per game. In 2024, Tennessee ran 953 plays, so actually more against the same competition, but averaged 2 fewer touchdowns per game. So the efficiency in the red zone's got to improve, and I'm not even talking about that here, but that should be another one as well. But the lack of explosives in this offense is sometimes a direct correlation. So for me, what is success for the Tennessee offense? And again, I don't know who quarterback is right now, and I know there's a lot of questions at wide receivers, but the explosiveness Down the field passing has got to come back in this offense, and that's something that what I deem successful if that returns, maybe not to as high of a mark as it was in 2021 and 2022, but it needs to get better. That is for sure. Also, as Tennessee has rushed for more than 2,500 yards all 4 years under Josh Heupel, I expect Tennessee's offense to surpass 2,500 yards on the ground this year. I put it at 2,600 yards plus on the ground. If Tennessee runs the football for over 2,600 yards as a team, I view that as being successful for sure. And then last thing on offense that I want to look at, and there's several different things we can break this down to, but another thing on offense that I want to look at in terms of successful for offensive coordinator Joey Halzle this year is Tennessee needs to score more. You know, you look at the points per game last year, Tennessee scored about 35 points per game. That looks great on paper, but you look specifically at games in the SEC last year, Tennessee averaged only 25 points per game in their 8 conference games. That needs to uptick by at least a touchdown, in my opinion. So can Tennessee score around 31 points per game in SEC play this year? That would be fantastic. We're not even going to bring up the numbers from 2022 because it was led the nation, of course, 46 points per game total. I don't know what the SEC mark was. I don't have it off the top of my head. But can Tennessee be a touchdown better in SEC games this year than it was a year ago? I think that should be something you strive for, at least 30 points per game in SEC play. I say it's not that hard. I know it's going to be challenging, obviously, but I think Tennessee can get that because at points in times last year, remember, you had 3 games where you were shut out in the first half. Like, you had games where you weren't even getting over 200 yards passing in SEC games. I think some of these intangible items are obtainable, even though you have questions about offense. So those are some of the things that I think would be successful for Joey Halzle in Tennessee's offense in 2024. Defensively, high expectations. I honestly don't know a lot about what I think Tennessee's offense is going to be. I just don't know. I do know Tennessee's defense, or at least I expect Tennessee's defense to be very, very good, just like it was a season ago. Tennessee, though, as we've mentioned on this podcast here recently, in 2024, Tennessee though it had the best defense of the Josh Heupel era with Tim Banks, it had the lowest sack total of a 4-year run. 29 sacks is all the defense mustered last year. 41 sacks in 2023, 34 in 2022, and 31 in 2021. Tennessee needs to surpass that by flying colors. Give me 37 sacks. If Tennessee's defense can bring down the opposing quarterback, 37 times this year, I think that's successful. Tennessee has managed 100 TFLs in 3 of the 4 years under Rodney Garner, Tim Banks, and the Josh Heupel system. That 1 year, 2022, that Tennessee did not accumulate 100 tackles for loss. It had 93. So given the recent track record and what Tennessee's defense has done, give me 100 TFLs. You get over that century mark, that is a pretty good statistic that you can hang your hat on. So 37 sacks, 100 TFLs, okay? Points per game, Tennessee was very good last year. On average, 16 points per game is what it allowed. I believe that was second best in the SEC, maybe third best in the SEC, but it was right up there. You think of some obvious games like Georgia, you allow 30-plus points. Ohio State, you allow 30-plus points. Can you minimize some of that damage in some of those big games? I look for Tennessee to be successful. Again, I have high expectation for this defense, for Tennessee to allow 17 points or below or less. I think that would be successful for sure. And as far as the run game, Tennessee allowed 6 rushing yards per game. That was second in the conference. Average 110 yards or fewer on the ground, and I think that could be successful. So those are just some of the things that I'm looking at in terms of offense and defensively, specifically for the coordinators, Joey Halzle offense, Tim Banks defense, on what I measure as finding success for your respective units. Never going to be perfect. It's never going to be exactly how you draw it up, specifically on offense, right? It's going to be very much a work in progress, but can you obtain some of those goals? Again, for offense, 31 points per game in SEC games, 2,600 yards plus rushing, return of the explosives, return of red zone efficiency, and give me the tempo. You got to go fast. Defensively, 37 sacks, 100 TFLs plus, below or 17 points or less points per game, 110 rushing yards or less per game given up defensively. And then finally for Josh Heupel, again, I'm not doing record predictions or anything like that. I just have something simple right here. You have so many questions surrounding your offense. Okay, we know what you have coming back on defense. Take advantage of what's in front of you. Take advantage of one of the easier on paper schedules in the Southeastern Conference. Again, I'm never going to call it super easy because you're on the road at Florida, you're on the road at Bama, you're at home against Georgia in week 3. But look elsewhere on that schedule, right? We got the graphic up here somewhere. Let's see here. Look at that schedule right here. Syracuse, neutral site to begin the season. I like Tennessee by 2 scores. I'm not coming off that. At Mississippi State, which we'll talk about here in a moment. Arkansas at home, revenge. Oklahoma's a big game at home. Vanderbilt to end the regular season at home. Again, you're playing a lot of these teams that rank below you in the SEC preseason standings or are not ranked inside the preseason AP poll. Take advantage of what's in front of you. Take advantage of that schedule and punch out some wins. That's what I think could be successful for Tennessee. Again, not record predictions, anything like that, but specifically offensively, defensively, and overall big picture for the head football coach. What say you? What would you deem successful this year for offensive coordinator Joey Halzle, defensive coordinator Tim Banks, and head coach Josh Heupel? Would love to hear from you right here on your Locked On Vols. All right, when we come back, Ward Wednesday. Josh Ward joins the show. That's coming up next right here on a Wednesday. Locked On Vols. Stay tuned. Hey guys, I want to tell you about our friends over at Monarch Money. Do you ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning for a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, your investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. I've got bank accounts here, mortgage comes out here, subscription-based stuff comes out of here. My Amazon account is tied to another credit card. I get paid from this job here, this job here. I'm all over the place. But with Monarch Money, it's all right in front of me, easy for me to follow and understand, so I know how much money I have, how much money I need to save, and how much money I need to put back for taxes at the end of the year. It helps me, and I think it can help you as well. Take control of your finances today with Monarch Money. Use promo code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That is monarchmoney.com, promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 50% off your first year. A big shout out to our friends over at Monarch Money. Josh Ward, we are 2.5 weeks through fall camp. Scrimmage number 2, it's a big one, obviously, coming up at the end of this week on Friday. Most surprising thing so far in your eyes for Tennessee football camps to date?
Most surprising. I would say that talk of some young guys and their ability to make an impact right away is a positive surprise, because during the summer months, let's say, that April to through July part of the conversation, and we could bring up the freshman wide receivers, but I was skeptical. Okay, are we really going to see that much of an opportunity? Now, part of it is injury, guys that haven't been available, but I think at the start, hey, Travis Smith Jr., there's a positive. And then at the tight end position, we've talked about Deshaun Brame. I think we stood next to each other at one of the practices, and he just seemed to be getting a lot of opportunity, and he just looked good. And I think the freshman tight ends have come in with a need. Again, that's probably affected by the wide receiver position as well. If Braylon Staley's missed time, and that slot position is so important, you can look at other options of what Tennessee might want to do. So I think that, and then I don't know if this is a surprise, but I think the conversation around the offensive line has progressed more positively than maybe was anticipated this quickly. So I would say that part of the conversation, while there are still big questions, quarterback position, how will the passing game come together, even if we're talking about the tight ends and their potential involvement with Ethan Davis and Brame and the athleticism that exists there. A lot that has to be proven, but I think that's been a positive, either surprise or hurried development through the first 2 weeks.
On the flip side, what aspect of the team, position battle, group, whatever, are you maybe most surprised that you haven't seen more development in, that you haven't seen more of a pecking order 1, 2, 3? I think the easy slam dunk answer is wide receiver, and please speak on that. But what's the opposite end there of what you'd be maybe, I don't want to say disappointed, but kind of like, all right, well, there needs to be a sense of urgency here.
Well, wide receiver for sure. Again, that's been affected by injuries, and that's just Eric, that's honestly a big concern going in because, one, there's the question of health. Will guys hold up over the course of the season? Two, their absence has affected the development of what you're trying to build with a new quarterback and inexperienced wide receivers. So, I mean, if you want to go back to December and ask, well, where was the impact transfer at wide receiver? It was a good question in the spring, and it's a question that still remains here in August. So I do think that's the slam dunk. Here's something I'll be curious about. The overall performance of the interior defensive line. Will they be as good as I think they're capable of being in stopping the run and creating a pass rush? Because we've discussed getting to the quarterback and bringing him down is something that needs to improve from last year. Omar Norman-Lott was a big-time talent in terms of being able to create havoc there on the interior. He is now in the NFL with the Kansas City Chiefs. So the defensive line I expect to be a strength, but will it be as good as we think that it can be? Will they have the depth that will be needed over the course of the season? There are guys that have to prove that that's the case.
3 minutes and 25 seconds in. I waited as long as I could. Let's talk quarterbacks. Are you surprised at this point in fall camp? Because I absolutely am. And it's a credit to George McIntyre that the reps have not been pared down. Do I think George McIntyre is going to be Tennessee's starting quarterback week 1 against Syracuse? No, I don't. And boy, would I love to be wrong. I welcome that. Man, that would be a great story. That'd be awesome. I mean, I'd be rooting like heck for that kid. He's not gone away. He just won't go away. And so the reps have not been pared down just yet like I thought that they would be. But this is a true 3-man battle still to this point. Now, push comes to shove, Josh. Friday scrimmage, for better or worse, they're going to have to be pared down. You're going into mock game week. Where are you at the Tennessee quarterback battle? Again, this is just my opinions, but in speaking with some other people, it still feels like Joey Aguilar is probably going to be the guy week 1, probably going to be the quarterback out of camp. But again, it's like nobody can stop talking about George McIntyre. Maybe that's a little overhype. It's just one scrimmage. I recognize going up against the second, third defense and all that, but give credit where credit's due. He's in this battle. He's not gone away.
Yeah, my thought during the summer was I'd be surprised if George McIntyre is really a part of the quarterback battle to be the starter on August 30th against Syracuse. And I guess I would still say today I'd be surprised for him to start the opener for Tennessee. But I've also held open the possibility that at some point this year, McIntyre is out there taking meaningful snaps, meaning he's playing in games that matter, games in the SEC. And I still think that could happen for multiple reasons. One, his talent level. Two, that's progressed, perhaps in terms of his talent level and how he's grown in trying to run the offense. Also because I think the guys he's trying to catch have a lower ceiling. I mean, the offense itself can help the quarterback succeed. Josh Heupel and his coaching can help whoever's out there be successful on the field. But I'm not surprised to come out of the first scrimmage or the first 2 weeks with the talk being about inconsistency in the passing game, especially when we include the lack of available starting wide receivers out there. How should we expect the quarterbacks to truly develop when they're not trying to develop with their best pass catching options? So Aguilar had a big challenge in front of him coming in so quickly and trying to get ready in this offense from the Sun Belt to UCLA to all of a sudden trying to run Tennessee's offense. I didn't come out of the spring thinking Jake Merklinger was ready to be a starter in the SEC. And then again, I have a lot of respect for George McIntyre and his skill. It's just that he's a true freshman that needs to get bigger and needs experience. So I'm not surprised by any of the conversation that's taken place so far with the quarterback position. If you told me that, hey, McIntyre is really going to push and have a chance to start the opener, that's what would surprise me.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. Wouldn't you agree, though? Again, Josh Heupel said after the scrimmage on Friday he wasn't ready to kind of pare down those reps. I mean, I respect that, but you know, obviously maybe the scrimmage will dictate that as well. That's going to happen moving forward next week because that's a mock game week. You're 2 weeks away from the opener. Whoever's going to be starting, or at least if you're not ready to name a starter, which I know they're not going to name a starter, but those top 2 guys need to be getting all the reps. I mean, that's got to happen, right?
I would think so. I'll be curious to hear after Friday how the reps looked. Was there some kind of separation that developed this week into Friday scrimmage? Eric, if we're having this conversation next week, that's problematic. I agree. I'd be really surprised if we are. With with all due respect to him, I don't know that Jake Merklinger should be a part of the conversation in terms of the chance to start on August 30th. I just don't think that's a winning formula for Tennessee in this offense. Maybe I'm wrong there, but I think it should be about Joey Aguilar right now, getting him ready for August 30th, because I think he's the likely starter, and also trying to get George McIntyre sped up, because if a change is needed this season, I think there's a good chance that George McIntyre would be a part of that change in some way.
Preseason AP poll was released earlier this week, number 24. Coaches poll last Monday, number 18. Which one's more accurate? And is there did Tennessee get slighted in either one of those polls?
Well, if we were to fast forward to the end of the season, I think the team ranked 18th and the team ranked 24th will both probably be 9-3. Maybe I'm wrong there. If Tennessee's 9-3, I think it's probably closer to 18 than 24 as an SEC team would be my guess. So I think right now and this is a preseason conversation, this is a projection. I think if you took teams 16, 17, 18, all the way down to 27, 28, 29, maybe 30, there's not a lot of separation team by team by team. So that's kind of a cop-out in saying it doesn't really matter, and you can make a great case for either side. Tennessee's defense makes a great case that it should be higher than 18. Tennessee's offense and the concern in the passing game says, hey, they're borderline top 25. So I would probably meet somewhere in the middle and say 2021 is a better spot for Tennessee. But if you said, no, you have to choose one or the other because of how good I think the Tennessee defense can be and at least how serviceable the offense can be, and I think Tennessee will be able to run the football, I would say 18 before 24.
You said 20 or 21. It sounded like you said 2021. I was like, oh man, Bayless Jones, Hendon Hooker. That was an exciting year. Only 7-5, but that was 7-6, I guess. That was an exciting year. You brought up the defense. One of the best players on the field for Tennessee defensively is Boo Carter. We know he missed some team activities in July. We know what Josh Heupel said to kick off fall camp. We know that Boo Carter really wasn't a part of practice for the most part the first week. He's been doing individual. He was involved. I asked Josh Heupel if he was involved in the scrimmage. He said he was. He was catching punts. He didn't play any defense. Josh Heupel didn't say that, but nonetheless, Boo Carter. Where are you at on Boo Carter? What does he need to continue to do heading into opener to have a chance to help Tennessee? And a lot of outside noise on social media this week, and obviously, I think you would agree with me. Just very much unneeded distractions for him, Boo, and really just this Tennessee fan base.
Yeah. So for Boo, he has to do everything right. He has to be on time for everything. He has to do what is instructed to him by coaches or staff members. Whatever he is told to do, he has to do it. And he has to do it with effort, and he has to show that he has the want to be a part of Tennessee's football team. I think once he returned to the practice field, not talking about when he was there with stretching and then went off to the side, when he was back on the practice field, I think an assumption was publicly, okay, so he's good to go. He's back. And that wasn't the case. That was just the next step for him. Because when the scrimmage happened on Saturday, and part of the conversation out of that was, well, the passing game is a concern. I heard some of, well, that's okay because the impact Boo will make on offense can make up for that. And my reaction was, he still has work to do to make sure he's going to make an impact on defense.
Yeah.
We're nowhere close to the offensive side of the conversation. Doesn't mean he won't help the offense this year, but there's nothing right now to indicate that he's going to get that kind of opportunity. So he has to he either has to continue or make sure moving forward that any mistakes he's made, that doesn't continue. We said on our show on Josh and Swain and I agreed, I feel for Boo in the other issues he has to deal with. It's not his fault what his mom's posting on social media. He can't control that. I'm sure she's either been told or asked to, don't do that. Don't put your son in that situation. Don't make those kind of comments because they do not help. They don't help Boo. They don't help the team. It doesn't help that the fan base sees it and starts arguing about stuff. Nobody benefits from it at all. So I feel for him that I don't think the influence around him, at least from everybody, has been what it should be. What Boo needs to do is handle his own business, be on time, be accountable, and do everything that's asked of him. If he does that, then he can have a successful season with Tennessee. But if he doesn't, he will not.
In the words of my boss, Brent Hubbs, I will have to believe it when I see it if Boo Carter lines up in the slot at wide receiver or whatever. Again, not saying it can't happen, but you're exactly right. I mean, it's let's focus on getting out there and playing star and returning punts first before you even think about if he can help or do anything on the offensive side of the football. Josh Ward, co-host of Josh and Swain with VFL Jason Swain, 99.1 The Sports Animal, noon to 3 every single weekday. What do you guys got coming up the rest of the week?
Yeah, a lot of football. We're talking about what's happening on the practice field, gearing up for the scrimmage. Recruiting continues to be a part of the conversation. It's a weird month, weird storylines. We had the John Mateer storyline with Oklahoma. We've talked about some of the off-field stuff.
Blurgate last week, man. Blurgate.
Yeah. Blurgate to Venmogate to who knows. We're talking about it all. The anticipated apparel deal announcement, and again, recruiting. All that conversation, 12 to 3, Monday through Friday on Josh and Swain.
Always appreciate Josh Ward for stopping by the show for Ward Wednesday right here on Locked On Vols. Each and every Wednesday, we've been doing it ever since I took over the show for Josh Ward all the way back in February of 2021. How about that, man? It's been a really, really fun ride here on Locked On Vols. Couldn't do it without you everydayers. Tennessee football, we are motoring right along close to the end of fall camp, close to the start of the regular season, and with that comes the obvious football slate. We continue our opponent, not preview, I call it scouting the opponent, because we're getting the scouting report on Tennessee's opponents this year. Again, I'm going to flash that schedule up there for you so you see what Tennessee's working with this year. We've already talked about Syracuse on the neutral site, ETSU for the home opener, Georgia for week 3, the SEC home opener, UAB, the Fighting Trent Dilfers on September the 20th. Now we're at September 27th, the first road game, the first road SEC game, and the first true road game on the slate. It is in Starkville, Mississippi against the Bulldogs of Mississippi State on September 27th. This was a team that was not good a season ago. Obviously, it was not good. Jeff Lebby took over for Zach Arnett 1 year after obviously taking over for Mike Leach, and it was not a good year for Jeff Lebby. Inherited a dumpster fire of a situation, though. 2-10 was the record in 2024, winless in Southeastern Conference play, 0-8. Tennessee beat them, I want to say 34-13 at Neyland last year. If you remember that game, that's when Nico Iamaleava didn't play the second half. Concussion, Gaston Moore came in, and Tennessee was able to outscore Mississippi State in the second half with a backup quarterback and cruise to a 34 to whatever win inside Neyland Stadium. This was a offense that was not very good, but a defense that was straight abysmal. Listen to these stats here, okay? Offensively in 2024, last year, Mississippi State ran for only 131 yards per game, which was not good. Allowed 38 sacks, which was second most, I should say, in the SEC, and averaged only 25.8 points per game, which was ranked 14th out of 16 teams in the Southeastern Conference. Just not good offensively whatsoever. But here's where it gets good. Defensively. Oh my goodness. Historically, a horrendous defense for the Bulldogs last year in 2024. Get a load of this. Mississippi State allowed 456 yards per game on average. That was obviously last in the SEC. The next closest was Florida, who gave up 376 yards per game. Again, 456 yards per game is what Mississippi State gave up on average. The next closest, or the next most in the SEC, was Florida at 376. Almost 100 more yards, almost, than the 15th ranked team in that category out of 16 in the SEC. It continues to get worse here. 34.6 points per game, most in the SEC. The next closest, or the next most in the SEC, Arkansas at 25 points per game. So nearly 10 more points given up per game than the 15th ranked team in the conference in that regard. Abysmal. Awful. 34 points per game on average. The next closest was Arkansas at 25. 217 rushing yards allowed per game. Woo! The next most in the SEC, again, that's the most in the SEC. The next most was Kentucky at 161. So they gave up over 200 yards on the ground per game. That is so incredibly bad. Here's the silver lining. Defense ranked 15th in pass defense. 234 yards given up through the air a game, and certainly that's nothing to brag about. Couple of key departures from this team that was, again, 2-10, 0-8 in the SEC last year. Quarterback Michael Van Buren, who took over for Blake Shapen, who we'll talk on here in a moment, started the final 8 games of the regular season. He transferred to LSU to back up Garrett Nussmeier. Wide receiver Kevin Coleman, who was the leading receiver for Mississippi State, he transferred to Missouri, taking his 74 receptions, 932 receiving yards, and 6 touchdowns to Columbia, Missouri. And wide receiver, one-time Tennessee football commit, Mario Craver. He's gone to Texas A&M. He was a big play guy. Didn't have a whole lot of receptions, 17 receptions, but 368 through the air and 3 touchdowns. Those were the big departures from this team. Now, this team brought in a ton from the transfer portal. Brought in a quarterback, and again, he won't start, but he's going to back up, most likely back up Blake Shapen. Luke Kromenhoek from Florida State. Brought in 4 wide receivers via the transfer portal. Anthony Evans from Georgia, who didn't play much. Marcus Allen from Eastern Michigan, who was really good. 43 receptions, 651 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Aiden Williams, a one-time Tennessee target in recruiting. He transfers in from Ole Miss, but he only had 3 receptions last year. Brennan Thompson didn't play an awful lot. Did score a couple of times for Oklahoma last year. That is who they brought in via the transfer portal wide receiver. At running back, brought in Fluff Bothwell from South Alabama. Love the name there, but really good productive player at South Alabama. 13 touchdowns, 832 yards, averaged 7.3 yards per carry last year. It's pretty good. Returning 5 guys on the offensive line that do have starting experience, but again, it's an offensive line that was obviously not very good last year. Defensively, again, trying to shore up a historically bad defense. Mississippi State brought in 5 defensive linemen, 4 wide receivers, 5 defensive linemen. Also brought in, former Tennessee linebacker Jalen Smith, who played a lot of snaps last year for Tennessee, especially once Keenan Peely went down with injury. So those are who Texas A&M or Mississippi State brought in. Now, you're probably looking at this list here like I am. I've got it written down in front of me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they brought in so many via the transfer portal. And then you look at what Tennessee did, and it brought in hardly any via the transfer portal. Now, I'm not sitting here making excuses. I think everybody and their mother knows Tennessee should have added another wide receiver body or 2. I'm not defending that they didn't. I'm not defending that. But you look at a program like Tennessee, and you can be in flux and be confused and frustrated about where the offense is right now and just the unknowns, kind of like I was in segment number 1, but obviously knowing what you have on defense. But look at this roster where Tennessee is right now, and then look at Mississippi State. Tennessee didn't just go get somebody to get somebody. Tennessee likes the young talent, albeit unproven, but likes the young talent that you recruited, signed, and now you want to develop and see those guys get on the football field. And that's why Tennessee's strategy wasn't to live in the transfer portal. Should have done it a little bit more, wide receiver. But then you compare it to a team like Mississippi State where it had no choice. The roster was so bad, you had to go out there and take anybody who wanted to come, and that's kind of what Mississippi State did. A couple of returners here as we end this segment on scouting the opponent. Quarterback Blake Shapen, who was really good to begin last season, missed the final 8 games of the regular season, but in those first 4 games, 974 yards passing, 68 completion percentage, 8 touchdowns, 1 interception. Again, former Baylor standout, transferred to Mississippi State last year, got hurt after 4 games. Devin Booth, really good, talented running back. I remember looking at him before that game last year. 152 yards on the ground, 759 yards, 5 touchdowns, 5 yards per carry. He's a pretty good player. Couple guys on defense, linebacker, edge, outside backer, Brandon Jennings, 56 tackles, 5 TFL. He returns. 2 starting safeties, Isaac Smith, who led the team with, wait for it, 127 tackles. He returns. His fellow safety, Hunter Washington, returns, who had 55 tackles. And then 2 guys who started at times. 4 games started for Kelly Jones, and a couple of games started. 2 games started for Diego Brumfield. Those 2 guys return as well. So Mississippi State shouldn't be good this year. I certainly think it's going to be better than what it was last year. But make no mistake about it. Tennessee on the road. Remember that game against Arkansas last year? Didn't win it. Should have won it. First true road game of the season for Tennessee. in Starkville. It's against a team that's not very good. Tennessee better go there and ready to play, though, because nothing is guaranteed. Nothing is guaranteed on the road in the Southeastern Conference. But if you had to pick one team on the schedule that you'd rather be on the road with first, probably is going to be Mississippi State this year for sure. All right, that is going to do it here for this edition of Locked On Vols. Can't thank you enough for being here, making Locked On Vols your part of your morning routine, your first listen, your first watch each and every single day. Big shout out and big thank you to Josh Ward for joining the show here today. We'll continue discussing the big takeaways from Tennessee Fall Camp. We'll continue with our Scouting the Opponent series, and a lot to come. A lot to come on tomorrow's Locked On Vols. Looking forward to it. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Tell your friends, tell your family members. This is the Tennessee football show for them. Weekday mornings when you wake up. 17,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. Can't thank you enough for that. Let's do it again tomorrow. This is Locked On Vols.